There comes a moment when silence becomes louder than words, when your absence screams louder than your presence ever did. And in that moment, people begin to feel something they never expected: regret, confusion, and the sting of reality. You see, they thought you'd never leave. They mistook your patience for weakness, your kindness, they took it for granted. But something inside you broke. Not out of anger, but clarity. That's when you chose you. When you walk away, not with drama, not with noise, but with peace, everything shifts. It's not just your life that changes. It's theirs too. Suddenly they feel the weight of what they've lost. They remember every time they ignored your needs, every time they laughed at your pain, every time they thought you'd stay no matter what. You walking away is not abandonment, it's the beginning of your healing. And trust me, people feel it. They feel your absence like a cold wind in a once warm room, like a light that went out in the middle of their darkness. They feel the love they wasted, the loyalty they abused, the soul they misread. Because when a good person walks away, it echoes. They feel the sudden emptiness in ways they never imagined. It starts slowly, like a light flickering out in the back of the room. At first, they might not even notice your absence, caught up in their own chaos. But soon the silence becomes too loud. But the phone doesn't ring. The messages stop. The check-ins vanish. You were the one who always showed up, the one who remembered their important days, the one who asked how they were. Really asked. And now, nothing. That nothingness echoes. They sit with it. They feel the weight of your absence, not just in the spaces you fill, but in the spaces you repaired, protected, and nurtured. Your presence wasn't just physical. It was emotional, spiritual. And when you're gone, the hollowness creeps in, like a slow-moving fog. It covers everything. And they realize you were the light. You were the warmth. And now they're cold. You didn't just walk away. You took the soul of the connection with you. And that's not something that can be replaced. That's something that haunts. They try to pretend it's fine at first. They smile in front of others. They post pictures. They act like they're unbothered. But behind closed doors, the truth sets in. The empty chair at dinner, the quiet inbox, the routine you used to share. It's gone. You brought a rhythm into their chaos, and now it's just noise. They reach for their phone almost instinctively, ready to share a story, a joke, a struggle, and then they remember. You're not there anymore. You're not an option. That realization, it stings. Not because they miss the convenience, but because they miss the care, the intentional love, the steady support. They begin to feel just how much of themselves was propped up by your presence. The structure's still there, but the foundation, it's crumbling. Because you were never just a person in their life. You were the piece in their storm. And they feel your absence in every direction they turn. There's a strange kind of loneliness that comes from losing someone who loved you deeply and quietly. It's not loud like heartbreak. It's not explosive like a fight. It's subtle, almost gentle, but it cuts deep. They feel it in the mornings when they don't wake up to your encouragement, in the nights when their thoughts race and no one calms them like you did. It's not just about your physical presence, it's about the emotional safety net you built for them without ever asking for credit. You were their sanctuary. And now they're exposed, vulnerable, left to deal with their demons alone, the same demons you used to sit with, holding their hand without judgment. That silence you left behind, it's louder than anything they've heard before. They try to fill it with noise, with people, with distractions. But nothing feels the same because nothing is you. They walk through life now with a shadow that wasn't there before. Every familiar place reminds them of you, the coffee shop, the park bench, even the songs on the radio carry traces of your presence. And with each reminder, they're confronted with the truth. They had something real, something rare, and they let it slip. The sudden emptiness isn't just about losing you. It's about losing who they were when they were with you. You brought out the best in them even when they couldn't see it. You believed in their dreams when they doubted themselves. You pushed them gently, never forcefully, to become better. And without you, they feel lost. Not because you completed them, but because you awakened them. And now that light is gone and they don't know how to ignite it again. They feel the emptiness in their decisions now. They second guess themselves. You used to be their sounding board, the one they bounced ideas off of, the one who told them the truth even when it was hard to hear. Now they're surrounded by people who only nod, people who don't see past the surface. You saw their soul. You challenged their growth. And without that, they feel unanchored. Every step they take feels uncertain. Every move feels heavier because your guidance wasn't controlling, it was empowering. And now they're realizing just how much of their courage came from your steady support. You were the mirror that reflected their strength back to them. Now all they see are cracks because the reflection is gone and so is the clarity. They feel it in their silence. Before, your silence meant safety, peace. Now, silence is terrifying. It's filled with guilt, with what ifs, with regrets they can't outrun. They remember every time they pushed you away, every time they didn't listen, every time they prioritized everything and everyone but you. And now, there's no more time, no more chances. You're gone and their heart knows it. They feel the weight of their choices, the cost of their neglect, and it burns. Not because they lost a relationship, but because they lost a soul who loved them without conditions. You loved them in their mess. You saw their brokenness and still stayed until one day you didn't. That day, it shattered their illusion. And now they sit in the very emptiness they created, trying to figure out how they let something so rare slip through their fingers. They try to find you in others, but they never do. They go out, they meet new people, they laugh, they flirt. But in the quiet moments, in the pauses between conversation, in the glances that don't hold meaning, they feel it, the difference. No one listens like you did. No one remembers the small things. No one sees through them like you could. And they realize you were never just another chapter. You were the one that mattered most. And they skip through it. Now they're rereading the story, hoping for a different ending, but it's already been written. You've moved on. And they're stuck in the pages of the past, haunted by the echo of your laughter, the calm in your voice, the sincerity in your love. That's the emptiness they feel, the loss of you, not just as a person, but as a presence that shifted their entire world. In their weakest moments, they remember your strength, the way you held them up without ever asking to be recognized. You were their backbone when life got too heavy. Now without you, everything feels like a burden. They carry stress differently. Pain hits harder. Life feels less manageable. Because even when you didn't have all the answers, you had a way of making them feel like everything would be okay. That hope you carried, it was contagious. And now, it's gone. They feel alone in their struggles. They cry quietly at night, wondering if they'll ever feel that kind of safety again. And they know deep down that it wasn't just about what you did for them. It was about who you were. You were light in human form. And now that light has faded from their world. They feel it in the way they talk about you now, carefully, regretfully. Sometimes they pretend they don't care. Sometimes they joke about it, but the truth always shows in their eyes. There's a softness when your name comes up, a pause, a sigh, a quiet ache, because they know they lost something sacred, something real, and they don't know if they'll ever get it back. Even if they apologize, even if they changed, something inside tells them, you're not coming back. And that thought, it's unbearable. Because they never thought they'd be the reason you walked away. They underestimated your strength, your silence, your ability to love deeply and still leave when that love isn't honored. They move through life now with a quiet ache in their chest. Days go by, seasons change. But something remains missing. You. Not because you were perfect, but because you were present. You saw them when they didn't even see themselves. And now, without that reflection, without that reminder, they feel invisible. You brought meaning to moments, depth to conversations, purpose to the mundane. Now it's just life. Uncolored, uninspired. They feel that emptiness in ways they can't put into words, in ways they never thought possible. And it all started the moment you chose peace over pain, dignity over desperation, self-worth over pleasing others. The moment you walked away, they began to feel everything they made you carry, and now they carry it alone. They feel the guilt, not immediately, but inevitably. The same words they dismissed now echo in their minds, louder than ever before. You tried. You gave them the benefit of the doubt. You whispered at first. Then you raised your voice, not out of anger, but desperation, because you saw what was coming. You felt the storm gathering, and you begged them to take shelter. You warned them not out of control, not to shame, but because you cared. You saw the cracks in the foundation. You saw the lies in the smiles, the danger behind the charm, the destruction hidden in comfort. But they didn't listen. They thought you were overreacting, dramatic, too sensitive. So they kept walking toward the cliff, eyes wide open, heart closed off. And now they sit with the consequences, haunted by your voice. The voice they once tuned out has become the only one they wish they had heard. Guilt is a slow burn. It doesn't hit like lightning. It creeps in like smoke under a locked door. At first, they try to justify it. I didn't know. I thought it would be okay. They were just trying to help. But the truth keeps pressing. Because deep down, they did know. You weren't silent. You didn't just walk away. You warned them. You pointed out the red flags, the inconsistencies, the self-destructive habits. You didn't do it to control them. You did it to protect them. You saw the bigger picture, the long-term pain, the patterns they refused to break. You held up the mirror and asked them to see what they were avoiding. And now, they remember every word you said, not as noise, but as prophecy. Every warning ignored has now become a bruise on their soul. Every time they shut you down is now a weight they can't put down. And they remember the look on your face, the way your voice trembled, not from weakness, but from truth. They remember how you sat with them in silence, choosing your words carefully, not to offend, not to attack, but to awaken. But they weren't ready, and instead of appreciating your honesty, they labeled you negative. Instead of seeing your love, they saw judgment. And now they sit with the realization that your love was the most honest thing they ever received. They feel it when the things you warned about start happening. The relationships falling apart, the consequences stacking up, the doors closing. And every time something breaks, your voice comes back. Not as an I told you so, but as a memory of the care they ignored. That's the guilt they feel. Not just that they failed, but that they rejected the very person who tried to save them from it. They start to replay the moments now, the late night talks, the texts they left on read, the phone calls they avoided. You weren't trying to lecture. You were trying to reach them. You were trying to love them when they were most unlovable and they couldn't see it. Because when people are blind to their own chaos, the person trying to bring order looks like the enemy. You became the enemy in their story, not because you hurt them, but because you held them accountable. And now that the damage has been done, they wish they had leaned in instead of pushing away. They wish they had taken your hand instead of slapping it away in pride. That guilt, the guilt of knowing someone saw their pain before they did and they rejected it, that guilt is heavy. It doesn't go away with time. It lingers because they know they had a lifeline and they let it go. They feel the guilt in the loneliness because when the storm finally hit, when the mask came off, when reality set in, you weren't there anymore. You had left not in anger, but in exhaustion. You had given every warning, every ounce of truth, and finally chose to protect your own peace. And now they sit alone, surrounded by silence. And they remember how you used to be the one who never gave up, the one who stayed even when it was hard. And they wonder, how did I lose someone like that? The answer comes sharp and clear. You ignored the warnings. You mistook compassion for criticism. You took the lighthouse and walked straight into the storm. That kind of guilt doesn't just sting, it scars. Sometimes guilt looks like anger. They may lash out, blame others, minimize your warnings in public, but cry over them in private because facing themselves is too painful. Admitting you were right means admitting they were wrong. It means facing their own pride, ego, stubbornness. It means realizing they weren't strong, they were selfish. And now they're not just dealing with the fallout of their decisions, they're dealing with the loss of someone who truly saw them, someone who stood in the gap when no one else did. That's a rare kind of guilt, because it's not just regret, it's realization, it's clarity, it's too late. They carry that guilt into every new connection, every friend they meet who doesn't check on them like you did, every conversation that feels surface level compared to your depth, every challenge they face without your wisdom. That's when it hits the hardest, not in the chaos, but in the quiet, when they realize no one is coming to save them like you tried to. No one is willing to speak the truth like you did. They had gold in their hands and they dropped it chasing glitter. And now they sit in the dark, sifting through rubble, trying to rebuild something that already had a foundation, but they ignored the one who built it. Eventually, guilt becomes a teacher, the pain becomes a lesson, but by then, you're gone. And the tragedy isn't just what they lost. It's that they had every chance to keep it, every warning, every truth, every opportunity. And now all they can do is sit with the memory of your voice, the image of your tears, the echo of your love, and wonder what could have been if only they had listened. They never thought you would leave. They assumed your love was endless, your patience unbreakable, your presence permanent. They believed you'd always be there, no matter how many times they overlooked you, misunderstood you, or pushed you aside. But now that you're gone, really gone, they're left with one emotion they can't escape. Shame. Shame for never saying thank you. Shame for never looking you in the eye and realizing you were the one person who truly stood by them. You were consistent, present. You listened when no one else did. You supported them when they had nothing to give back. You celebrated them when they couldn't even clap for themselves. You carried burdens that weren't yours. You loved them when they were hard to love. And they mistook all of that as your job, not your choice. That's the shame they sit with now, knowing you gave them your best while they gave you their love. They feel it in the silence now. No more messages, no more calls, no more checking in. The phone doesn't buzz. The door doesn't open. And for the first time, they realize how loud your absence truly is. They didn't notice your presence because it was always there. But now, every quiet moment screams your name. Every peaceful silence is filled with the memory of you doing the emotional labor they never even acknowledged. They thought you had no limit. They believed your loyalty was blind. They assumed you were too kind to walk away. But you did. Not with anger, not with bitterness, with a tired soul and a silent goodbye. And now, that silence is deafening. They can't explain it away anymore. They can't joke about it. They can't blame you because deep down they know they took you for granted. And that truth stains every thought they have of you. They remember the little things now, the thoughtful words, the late night talks, the just checking in messages, the encouragement when they were falling apart. Back then, they rolled their eyes or barely noticed, but now those memories hit differently. They realized those small acts weren't small at all. They were love in its purest form. Love they mishandled, love they didn't protect. And the shame runs deeper because they know you didn't ask for much, just appreciation. Now they sit in the very place they placed you on the sidelines, invisible, unheard. They're experiencing the same neglect they once handed to you so easily, and it hurts. Not because you're punishing them, but because life has a way of showing people the reflection they ignored. You were their mirror, and they shattered it with selfishness. Now they're left looking at broken pieces, trying to understand how they could disrespect someone who only wanted to see them rise. They tell themselves stories now. I didn't mean it. I was just stressed. They knew I cared. But the truth keeps breaking through. No, you didn't know. Because love isn't just felt, it's shown. And they failed to show it when it mattered. They assumed you'd read between the lines. They thought you'd stay no matter how unappreciated you felt. That shame now becomes a shadow, following them. In every new connection they try to form, they see parts of you in other people now, and it hurts. Because no one does it like you. No one listens like you. No one gives like you. They realize how rare you were, not just in your love, but in your patience, your presence, your peace. And they understand too late that loyalty like yours doesn't come around twice. That's the heaviest part of their shame, knowing they had something real and treated it like it was disposable. And when they try to come back, because they will, it won't be with confidence. It'll be with guilt in their eyes and shame in their voice. They'll search for forgiveness in your silence and hope for reconciliation in your peace. But you won't move the same anymore. You've outgrown the version of yourself that tolerated being taken for granted. You're no longer the person who sacrifices themselves for someone who only noticed when you were gone. Their shame doesn't come from losing you, it comes from realizing they were the reason. They could have had forever, but they didn't cherish the moment. They could have grown with you, but they chose comfort over effort. Now all they can do is live with the shame of knowing they had a real one and let you slip through their hands. They feel the confusion of no closure, like a storm that never ends. You walked away, not with a dramatic exit, not with shouting or doors slamming, but with a stillness that echoed louder than any words ever could. You didn't give them explanations. You didn't give them warnings. You just left. And now they're stuck, endlessly replaying every moment in their minds, trying to piece together the exact second when things changed. They ask themselves what they missed, what they failed to notice, what they said or did that pushed you away. The silence you left behind isn't peaceful, it's haunting. It wraps around them at night, makes the air heavy in the room, and whispers doubt into every thought they have. That's what no closure does. It keeps them locked in a maze with no way out. They thought they had time to make it right, time to apologize when they were ready, time to finally see you when they were done looking at everyone else. But they waited too long, and now they're stuck with a goodbye that never came. It's hard for them to accept that your silence was your answer. They want a conversation, a reason, a final word to ease the guilt that's growing inside them. But instead, they sit with the weight of confusion, trying to understand how someone who once cared so deeply could vanish without a trace. They try to convince themselves that maybe you didn't care at all, because that lie feels easier to swallow than the truth. That you cared enough to walk away with your dignity intact. They remember every detail now, every look, every moment of hesitation, every time your tone changed, and they wonder if that was the moment you mentally checked out. They obsess over texts they never replied to, promises they never kept, the times you cried in front of them and they looked the other way. All those moments are now magnified, and they feel like sharp glass cutting through their thoughts. And the worst part? They can't ask you anymore. They can't reach out and ask for clarity, because deep down, they know you're done. You made your peace silently, and now they're the ones screaming inside. They thought closure meant mutual understanding, a clean ending, a final conversation. But you taught them that sometimes closure is what you create for yourself when someone else refuses to care enough to give it. Now they sit in rooms you once filled, spaces that once held your laughter, and they realize they never really saw you. They were too busy being selfish, too distracted with their own lives to notice yours was slowly drifting away. And when they finally turned around to reach for you, you were already gone. That's the kind of confusion that doesn't leave. It shows up in new relationships, in quiet moments, in dreams. It makes them question if they even deserved you in the first place. They replay your kindness, your loyalty, your effort, and they wonder how they missed it all while they had it. It wasn't that you didn't give them signs. It was that they refused to read them. And now those signs are all they can see. They try to move on, they really do, but every person they meet now is compared to you. Every smile reminds them of yours. Every gentle soul reminds them of the one they let slip away. They scroll through your old photos, stare at your old messages, hoping to feel some kind of closure, but all they feel is more emptiness. They want to hate you for leaving without a word, but they can't, because deep down, they know they created the silence. They know they gave you every reason to give up. And now they can't even get angry. They just feel lost. Lost in the absence of your voice. Lost in the emptiness of what used to be a bond they took for granted. They talk about you in half sentences now with friends who don't understand, trying to explain how someone could be so present and then disappear without a trace. And they can't even explain it themselves, so they pretend they're fine. They put on a brave face. But every quiet moment is a reminder of you. Of the way you made them feel understood, of the way you showed up without being asked, of the way you loved without condition. And it kills them inside to know they can't go back and appreciate you properly. They want to go back in time and say the things they never said, do the things they never did, be the person you always deserved. But there's no rewind button on real life. Just regret. They keep hoping you'll reach out even just once, even just to say goodbye, even just to let them feel some kind of peace. But deep down, they know you won't. Because if you were going to, you already would have. And that's the hardest pill to swallow. That you've closed a chapter they're still stuck in. that you found your peace while they're still picking up the pieces. They try to convince themselves they're better off, that it was meant to be this way. But in the quiet, their heart tells a different story. One filled with what ifs and if onlys, and no matter how hard they try, they can't find the ending they never got. So they live with that confusion. They live with that ache. They live with the unanswered questions and the unresolved emotions. They go about their days pretending not to care, but your absence is everywhere. It's in the songs that once made them think of you. It's in the places you once went together. It's in the conversations where your name almost slips out. And it's exhausting, trying to bury a love that never got the dignity of a proper goodbye. They realize now that no closure is worse than heartbreak, because at least heartbreak has a beginning and an end. But this just lingers, haunts, and stays. And the truth is, you didn't owe them closure. Not after everything they overlooked. Not after the way they made you feel unseen. Sometimes the absence is the closure. Sometimes silence speaks the truth louder than any goodbye ever could. And maybe one day they'll finally understand that. But until then, they'll keep chasing the ending that never came. They'll keep looking for peace in a story they wrote with neglect and selfishness. And they'll keep remembering the one who walked away, not with revenge, not with hatred, but with strength. Because sometimes the greatest act of self-respect is not explaining why you left. They feel the void of your loyalty like a wound that never fully heals. It's not just your absence that hurts. It's the silence where your support used to be. The emptiness where your unwavering presence once stood. You were the one who stood by them when no one else did. The one who believed in them even when they couldn't believe in themselves. You listened to their rants, carried their secrets, and gave them comfort in their darkest moments. You showed up over and over again, expecting nothing in return but honesty and care. And yet, they took that loyalty for granted. They assumed you would always be there, always available, always willing to forgive and forget. Now, the loyalty they once treated as a given has vanished. And in its place is a cold silence that screams louder than words. Every time something goes wrong in their life, they instinctively want to call you, text you, or just hear your voice. But then they remember, you're no longer there. You're no longer the safety net they once abused. And in that moment, they feel the void you left behind, not as a quiet absence, but as a roaring emptiness that can't be ignored. They used to think your loyalty was unbreakable. They believed no matter what they did, no matter how far they pushed, you'd always come back. They tested your patience, stretched your kindness, and made excuses for why they couldn't reciprocate your energy. You forgave things most people would walk away from. You defended them when others criticized. You stood in front of them like a shield, even when they gave you reasons not to. And yet, they saw your loyalty as weakness. They thought your forgiveness meant you'd never leave. They thought your love was something they didn't have to earn, didn't have to cherish. But they were wrong. Because the day you walked away, they realized your loyalty wasn't blind. It was a choice. A choice you made daily. A choice they never deserved. And now, without you, they're forced to face a world where loyalty isn't handed out freely, where people don't just stay because of history, where true companionship has a limit, and it hits them like a storm. The realization that they lost the one person who stood 10 toes down no matter what. That kind of regret sinks deep. They can't replicate what you gave them. They try to find it in others, but no one shows up the way you did. No one listens with the same depth. No one checks in the same way, and no one cares as fiercely or consistently. The people they now surround themselves with are shallow compared to the ocean of loyalty you brought into their life. They miss your consistency, the way you remembered the little things, the way you showed up even when you were tired, the way you held space for them without needing to be asked. They miss how you celebrated their wins like they were your own, how you grieved with them in their losses. The void left behind is not just emotional, it's spiritual. You brought peace, understanding, and reliability in a chaotic world. And now, in your absence, everything feels shaky. Nothing feels rooted. They crave the grounding presence you used to bring, but no matter how many people they turn to, it's never the same. Because what you gave them wasn't surface level affection, it was deep, raw, unconditional loyalty. And once you've experienced that, nothing else quite compares. They're haunted by the memory of how they treated you. They replay every moment they made you feel unwanted. Every time they dismissed your concerns. Every time they left your messages unread. They think about the arguments they provoked just to feel in control. The times they left you hanging just to test your reaction. And the more they remember, the more they feel the shame pressing in on them. Because now, without your loyalty, they're forced to admit to themselves that they ruined something sacred. It wasn't just a friendship or a relationship. They lost a pillar in their life. You were someone they could count on when the world felt like it was falling apart. You were their emotional anchor. And instead of valuing that, they made you feel like you were too much, like your loyalty was a burden instead of a blessing. That regret eats away at them. It turns their good memories into painful reminders. And the more they wish they could rewind time, the more they realize they can't undo the damage. They can't erase the pain they caused. All they can do now is sit in the emptiness your loyalty once filled. They begin to realize that loyalty is not about always being there. It's about choosing someone every single day, even when it's hard. You did that. You chose them over and over again. You stood by them through chaos, disappointments, and betrayals. And still, they looked at your devotion and saw it as something that would never run dry. But everything has a limit, even your patience. You waited for them to grow, to see you, to match your energy. You gave them chance after chance, hoping that maybe this time they would change. But they didn't. And eventually you stopped choosing them. You chose yourself. And that's what really hurts. They didn't think you ever would. Now, every time they think of loyalty, they think of you. They think of the moments they turned their back while you stood firm. They think of how they overlooked your value until it was too late, and they sit with that awareness, realizing that what they lost can't be replaced, because your loyalty wasn't just rare, it was once in a lifetime, and now that it's gone, they see the true cost of their carelessness. They scroll through your old messages now, searching for signs of when you started pulling away, of when the loyalty began to crack. They read your words and realize how patient you were, how many times you extended grace when they didn't deserve it. And now those messages feel like relics of a love they never protected. They remember how you used to remind them of their worth, how you encouraged them even when you were breaking, how you celebrated their smallest victories like they were monumental. And now there's no one rooting for them like you did. Their victories feel hollow, their struggles feel heavier, because you're not there to balance it all anymore. They realize how lonely success feels when it's not shared with someone who genuinely cares. They realize how painful life feels when the one person who used to check on them at random times isn't checking in anymore. You were their comfort zone, their emotional home, and now they're lost. They scroll, they reminisce, they wish, but nothing brings you back. The void you left isn't just about what's gone. It's about what they now know they will never have again. And they watch you from a distance, maybe through social media or mutual connections, and they see that you're doing fine, maybe even better. You're glowing, peaceful, elevated, and that realization crushes them because it confirms what they feared all along. You didn't need them the way they needed you. They convinced themselves that your loyalty came from dependence, that you needed them to feel validated, but now they see it clearly. Your loyalty was strength, not weakness. It came from self-respect, not desperation. And now that you've reclaimed that energy for yourself, they see the power in your absence. They see the weight of your presence now that it's missing. And it makes them question everything. Why didn't they treat you better? Why didn't they wake up when you gave them warning after warning? The truth is, they didn't believe you'd ever leave. But now, watching you thrive without them, they're forced to confront the truth. They were never your anchor. You were theirs. And now that you've cut the rope, they're drifting in waters they don't know how to navigate. They replayed the last time you were there for them. Maybe it was a phone call at 2 a.m. Maybe it was showing up uninvited just because you sensed they weren't okay. They remember how you always knew without being told, how you always acted before being asked. That kind of loyalty doesn't come around often. It's intuitive, it's sacred. And now they look around and realize no one else shows up like that. No one else knows them the way you did. The people in their life now don't check on them with the same urgency, don't see through their fake smiles, don't stick around when things get messy. You did. And in losing that, they lost a part of themselves because your loyalty didn't just support them, it shaped them. It held them together when they were falling apart. And now that glue is gone and they're cracking under the weight of life. They thought they were strong enough to stand without you. But now they realize you were the strength. And losing you feels like losing a part of their own identity, one they may never reclaim again. Every day they carry that emptiness with them. It follows them into conversations, relationships, even moments of joy. There's a constant comparison happening in their mind, a measuring stick where everyone falls short because no one has your depth, your sincerity, your consistency. They try to replace you, to fill the void with temporary fixes, but nothing satisfies. They laugh less because after losing someone like you, they fear they'll never find that kind of loyalty again. And the saddest part, they know they did it to themselves. You didn't betray them. You didn't give up on them out of nowhere. They pushed and pushed until there was nothing left to give. Now they walk around pretending it doesn't matter, pretending they're fine. But in the quiet, in the stillness, your absence echoes the loudest. They don't just miss you, they miss who they were when you were in their life. They miss the safety of being known, the comfort of being understood, the gift of being chosen day after day. And no matter how far they run, they'll always feel the void of your loyalty, like a shadow that refuses to leave. They feel the awakening of consequences not as a loud crash, but as a quiet realization that creeps in slowly and steadily, like the sun rising after a stormy night. At first, they dismiss it, convincing themselves that your absence is temporary, that life will go on as usual without you. But time has a way of making things clearer. And as the days pass, it dawns on them that the decisions they made, the way they treated you, the things they said or failed to say, all of it added up. They begin to see the pattern. And in that pattern, they find themselves at the center of the damage. It's not immediate, but it's undeniable. There's an eerie quiet in their life where your voice once echoed. The conversations are shorter now, less meaningful. The laughter doesn't hit the same. The comfort they once felt, knowing you were there through thick and thin, is gone. They thought walking over your boundaries would come without a cost, but now reality is knocking, and it's not asking politely. It's delivering the result of every action they thought had no consequence. The most painful part? Realizing they triggered the loss of someone irreplaceable with their own hands. The awakening doesn't come from a single moment. It's a collection of small realizations, like when they reach for their phone in need of comfort and realize they have no one to call. Or when something funny happens and the first person who comes to mind to share it with is you, but you're no longer there. It's the silence in the spaces you used to fill. It's the absence in moments that used to be full of warmth, thanks to your presence. They underestimated your value because you made it look easy to care, to forgive, to show up. They mistook your consistency for something that would never break. They thought you'd keep pouring even when your cup was empty. But now that the well has run dry, they realize what they had. And it's that realization that stings the most. Knowing that the loyalty, the effort, the energy you brought to their life wasn't common. They thought you'd never leave, and now they're left wondering how they ever let you slip away. The weight of that consequence doesn't just live in their mind, it settles in their chest, making every breath heavier than the last. They're learning now, too late, that you were the glue holding things together. They begin to look back, dissecting every moment they took for granted. They start replaying arguments where they dismissed your feelings, the times you reached out and they didn't respond, the moments you needed them but they chose convenience over compassion. At the time, they justified it. Maybe they thought you'd get over it. Maybe they told themselves you were too emotional, too sensitive, too dramatic. But now those justifications fall flat. They begin to see the truth. They didn't respect the depth of your care. They didn't take the time to understand the weight of your silence or the strength it took for you to walk away. And now, with you gone, they feel the full scope of the consequences. It's not just about losing you, it's about losing the version of themselves that felt worthy in your presence. Your love, your loyalty, your effort made them feel significant. Now that it's gone, they feel hollow. They try to replace what they lost, but nothing fits. No one cares the way you did. No one sees them the way you did. And so the consequence isn't just regret. It's the aching awareness that they traded gold for dust. They thought they had time. That's the illusion people live in when they're comfortable, believing that apologies can come later, that the other person will always be around, that loyalty is forever, even when abused. They postpone growth, postpone change, because they believed your patience had no limits. But everything has a breaking point. And now they're left staring at the door you walked out of, hoping it might swing back open, but it doesn't. Because you're done. You gave them chances, grace, warnings, but they didn't listen. They saw your boundaries as threats instead of protection. And now the awakening hits them like a tidal wave. They can't sleep the same. They can't laugh the same, because in the back of their mind, there's a constant reminder, I pushed away someone who truly cared. That thought doesn't leave. It follows them, shows up in quiet moments, stings during their highs and echoes through their lows. That's the price of negligence. That's the price of indifference. They thought consequences were loud, immediate, obvious, but yours came in silence, in distance. And in that stillness, they're learning the loudest lessons they've ever heard. They watch your life move on without them, and that might be the most powerful consequence of all. To see you smile again. To see you find peace they never helped create. To watch you blossom in a life where they no longer play a part. It makes them question everything. Because if you could be okay without them, maybe they were never as essential as they believed. That truth crushes their pride. It dismantles the illusion they built that you needed them more than they needed you. The reality is, you were the one adding value. You were the one pouring in love, patience, understanding, and they were consuming, not contributing. Now they're forced to see the imbalance they ignored for so long. The photos you post, the laughter you share, the joy you radiate, every bit of it is a reminder that healing happened without their help. That you rebuilt yourself while they stayed stagnant, and it eats at them. Because now they want to reach out, they want to apologize, but pride and fear hold them back. Because deep down they know consequences aren't just about losing access. They're about realizing the access was never deserved in the first place. When they lie awake at night, that's when the truth screams the loudest. That's when the mask falls off and the distractions fade. They're left with their thoughts, and their thoughts don't lie. They remember how you looked at them when you were hurt, how your voice cracked when you said you'd had enough, how you pulled away slowly, hoping they'd notice before it was too late. They didn't. The peace you chose is deafening. They never understood the cost of their behavior because you absorbed the pain in silence. You didn't always fight back. You didn't always scream. You just distanced. And now that you're gone, they realize you were speaking the whole time. You were just doing it with your absence. That's the consequence they never expected. That you would heal without them. That your growth would expose their lack of it. And in the dark, when no one's watching, that realization wraps around their heart like a chain. It's not just guilt. It's the awareness that they had something good and their own actions drove it away. They try to distract themselves, maybe with new people, new routines, temporary highs, but nothing sticks. Because every person they meet is measured against you. Every connection falls short of the depth you offered. They try to convince themselves they're over it, that they've moved on, that you didn't matter as much as it feels. But their heart knows better. You were the safe space, the calm in their chaos, the one who saw the broken parts of them and chose to stay until you didn't. And now they understand that love and loyalty are not owed. They are earned. They lost someone who showed up without conditions, and in losing you, they learned that not everyone stays forever, especially not the ones who love deeply. They begin to see the pattern in their life. The people they pushed away, the chances they wasted, the bridges they burned, but your loss stands above the rest because you weren't just another person. You were the one who genuinely cared. And losing someone like that changes you. It wakes you up to the truth that love, real love, is fragile. And when broken, it doesn't always come back. They start to feel the shift within themselves. The same indifference they once showed others is now being reflected back at them. They're the ones reaching out and getting no response. They're the ones being overlooked, misunderstood, taken for granted. And for the first time, they understand how it felt to be you. They feel the sting of being on the outside looking in. They feel the ache of not being seen. It humbles them. It breaks down the walls they build around their ego. Because karma doesn't always come in revenge, it often comes in lessons. And your absence has become their greatest teacher. They find themselves more cautious now, more introspective, more aware. They begin to treat others with a softness they never gave you. But it's too late for you to see it. You've moved on, you've closed that chapter. And while they're finally becoming who they should have been all along, they're doing it alone. That's the bittersweet part of consequences. They grow you, but they don't always restore what was lost. They're left with growth in one hand and regret in the other. And every step forward is haunted by the question, what if? Every time they see someone who even slightly reminds them of you, their heart sinks. A laugh that sounds familiar, a phrase you used to say, a presence that mirrors your calm. They're constant reminders of what's gone. They don't just miss you, they miss the way you made them feel. Safe, seen, loved. And now that you're no longer there to provide that, they search for it in places that leave them more empty than before. The world doesn't feel the same without your loyalty guiding them, your words encouraging them, your presence grounding them. They now understand that consequences aren't always external. Sometimes they're internal shifts. A loss so deep it alters the way you experience joy. A lesson so painful it shadows your triumphs. And that's what they carry now. A permanent reminder that they had something rare, something pure, and they let it slip through their fingers. They live with the echoes of what could have been, wishing they had woken up sooner. But the consequence of being asleep too long is waking up to find the one you needed is already gone. And no matter what they do, they can't rewind time. They can only live with the ache. When you decide to walk away, the people who once held you close feel a profound awakening, a stirring within that reveals the true weight of their actions and choices. It's not just about your absence. It's about the deep realization that everything they took for granted, every ignored warning, every moment of loyalty they dismissed now stands starkly in the light of consequence. They awaken to the truth that love and loyalty aren't endless resources to be spent carelessly. They are sacred gifts, delicate and rare, meant to be cherished and protected. And when those gifts are no longer there, the void left behind is undeniable. It is in that void that they feel the full force of what they lost. Not just you, but the part of themselves that felt whole because of your presence. This awakening is not sudden, but slow and deliberate, unfolding in moments of quiet reflection and unexpected silence. It comes when they reach for you and find only emptiness. It comes when they try to fill the space you left, but realize nothing compares to what you brought into their lives. The consequences they now face are not just about losing your presence. They are about losing the chance to be better, to grow, to cherish what truly matters before it slips away. It is the realization that their neglect was not harmless, that their disregard for your loyalty fractured something precious beyond repair. In this awakening, pride often gives way to regret, and denial crumbles under the weight of truth. They see clearly now the signs they ignored and the warnings they dismissed. They remember the love and effort you invested without complaint, and they recognize the cost of their indifference. The silence you chose is the loudest message they will ever hear, the message that some doors once closed do not reopen. And as they watch you thrive beyond their reach, they confront a painful reality. You were the anchor in their chaos, the light in their darkness, and without you, they are adrift. Yet this consequence is not merely about loss, it is about awakening to growth. They are forced to look inward, to confront the parts of themselves that allowed the damage to happen. They begin to understand the fragility of human connections and the responsibility that comes with love. Though it may be too late for reconciliation, this awakening plants seeds of change. Seeds that can grow into wiser, more compassionate versions of themselves. But these changes come with the bittersweet knowledge that growth cannot always restore what was broken. As they wrestle with this new reality, they come to appreciate the depth of your loyalty and the strength it took for you to walk away. They feel the sharp contrast between what they had and what remains, and they carry the lessons of loss with them forever. And in the quiet moments, when regret and longing surface, they realize that true loyalty is not just about staying. It's about honoring the worth of someone who believed in you enough to leave when they no longer felt valued. So as you stand firm in your decision to walk away, remember this: your absence is a powerful message, a testament to your self-worth and boundaries. It is a catalyst for awakening, not just for them, but for anyone who witnesses your strength. You remind the world that loyalty deserves respect, and that sometimes walking away is the bravest act of love you can show yourself. Thank you for listening. And may you always find the strength to honor your worth and embrace the awakening that comes with standing firm. God bless you.